You know, Sandy, that was a huge, huge light bulb moment to me. I have done so much reading and following the group, but I've never ever heard that you try to replicate the most difficult relationship maybe that you've had, and that unconsciously could very well be it. I mean, I've never heard that. That's a huge light bulb in my head right there.
This is episode number 589. I'm going to be coaching Jen today. She is scared to date again, and we're going to be talking about how to date when you've been dumped, when you've had a bad breakup, when it's been a long time since you've dated and you just want to know how to get back out there and why the fear is so strong. So I'm really excited to share this episode with everybody. I am Sandy Weiner. Welcome back to Last First Date Radio, where we believe it is never too late to go on your last first date. And to support you, I've written 2 books. The first one is called Becoming a Woman of Value, How to Thrive in Life and Love. And this book is filled with 30 chapters. Each one has a story, an interview, some tip that will help you to thrive in all parts of your life and not just dating. So it's good for single people as well as people in relationships. And the second book was written specifically for dating. It's called Choice Points in Dating. And I wrote that book because I think we often don't know what our choices are. And it's really a guidebook for not only how to date, but how to think about dating and who to date and how to know how to conduct yourself on first dates and how to do online dating, pretty much every aspect of dating, especially at this stage in life that we talk about here on the podcast. You can find both books on Amazon for Kindle or paperback. This week's tip from the Woman of Value book is step number 28, which is lean back. And we are taught to lean in. Sheryl Sandberg talks about leaning in at work. And I think that women who are successful are also leaning in dating. They're leaning in too strongly. And so what happens is we end up planning the dates and we end up doing all the hard work. And then we wonder why the men don't show up for us. So my suggestion is if you are that type of person, lean back. Let a man know what you like and see if he comes forward. Because if you're doing all the hard work, he has no incentive to do anything. And so before I bring Jen on, I just want to invite you to join the group that Jen is in, which is Your Last First Date. It is on Facebook. It is my pride and joy. I started this group probably 6-7 years ago already, and we're about 4,000 women strong now. It's really a beautifully run group, run by me and my 7 incredible moderators who abide by specific guidelines that I set up to keep this group sane and safe, which is so rare in the world of Facebook groups. So if you are not yet a member, join us at Your Last First Date. I want to read what Jen sent in, and so you have a little bit of an idea about what's going on, and then we'll talk to Jen. So she wrote, 10 years ago, I was dumped without any notice, and now I'm really scared to date again. I was blindsided. I thought he was the one. Things were wonderful until one day they were not. I was reeling and confused for a number of years, foolishly hoping he'd come back and hoping for closure. I realized 2 years ago that the problem was his and I am enough. I have wasted years with a broken heart and I have so much love to give. I asked all the right questions and I still got hurt. I've done a lot of reading, listening to the podcast, and following your group on Facebook, but I'm so scared to try again. It's safer to be content alone, but I would like so much more. I realize there are no guarantees, so I'm looking for help in opening my heart to love again. Thank you so much, Jen, for writing in.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm going to ask you a lot of questions and
Okay.
going to get some more information about this relationship and about you and about your fears. So let's start with, tell me, how long did the relationship last? Let's start there.
The relationship was on and off for probably 3 years. We broke up 2 times within that, and both times they were absolutely without warning. It's just things changed one day and I never saw it coming. So 3 years in total.
Okay, so both times the breakup was initiated by him and there was
Yes,
no warning, but you took him back.
I did.
When he came back, did he say, I changed, I'm sorry? Like tell us a little bit about what happened.
Well, the first, yes, I was absolutely blindsided. So, I figured that was the end of relationships. That's the way it's always been in my life. And 3 months later, he sought me out and I asked him to please leave me alone. And I was working on healing. And he said he wanted to talk to me and he was willing to do counseling. So he went to counseling for 8 weeks and contacted me at the end of the counseling. And we talked for a couple of hours. And I thought with the counseling and with everything we talked about, we were okay to move forward again and try again.
Okay, so he did go for some therapy. You put a
Yes.
boundary down, which is great. And he came back and nothing had really changed.
I thought it did. I really
Okay.
thought it did for a number of months. It was great. It was actually even better than the first time until all of a sudden one day, again, we need to talk, and he became very cold, and there was no reason, no excuses, no arguments, nothing. It was just it wasn't working for him.
What did he go to counseling for?
He told me the counselor said he needed to learn some empathy and that he needed to work on himself, which he said he did. And he needed to learn what his love languages were and how to treat people well in relationships.
Okay, so one thing I'm not hearing is communication. He didn't communicate
No,
throughout. If he was upset about something, it was just a sudden, I'm done. So, yes, empathy is important. Love languages are important, understanding each other, but there's a big thing missing, which is communication. Which brings me to ask you, what about your communication in that relationship? Did you speak up when feelings were hurt?
I never honestly noticed anything going on until it went bad. It was really good until it went bad. And that's what took me so long being stuck, is that we had a great time. We traveled a fair amount. We seemed to have similar interests. It was like a Jekyll and Hyde is all only thing I can say. It was everything was good until all of a sudden one day he would just become cold and there was no reason. I thought I asked all the right questions about former relationships, what he wanted, where he was going, met his family. I really, that's what really threw me, is because I thought I did things the right way.
What did he say about former relationships?
He had said he had been married, sorry, for a number of years, probably 15 or 20 years, and his wife left him for another woman. So I understand that was quite hard on him. And then he was in another relationship with a woman from high school for 7 years. They never lived together. And that was the last relationship that she had left him. And it's just supposedly they grew apart.
So he was left twice.
He was, but I found out through the grapevine later that the reason, despite me asking, that he broke up with me is he went back with her, the one from
Mm,
7 years.
wow. So that must have been hurtful to you.
Well, it was extremely hurtful, and I really would have liked to have at least been told, because I asked that and I asked for a reason because I didn't understand, and he lied to me.
Mhm. Take me back to some of your relationships prior to him. If you can give me kind of the cliff notes of the key relationships.
Married quite young, divorced quite young. We just were too young to get married. We shouldn't have got married. The next, I was by myself for a number of years after that. And then I was with somebody for 7 years, and he was away from home a lot working. He was a long distance truck driver, and he ended up leaving with a woman that he met in another city where he was working. And so I found out after the fact that he had an affair. It was an abrupt end as well, and he just left as well.
And who left the marriage?
I did. I chose
You
to leave the
left.
marriage.
And
Mhm.
what kind of problems? You said there were issues because you were too young, but what type of problems?
He was quite controlling, mentally controlling, and I just didn't want to live that way. That was the way his family was. All his brothers were the same way, and I didn't see it right away. So,
Mhm. So the 7-year relationship had an abrupt end, and your 3-year relationship had an abrupt end more than once. You mentioned that this is a pattern, like that you've experienced this before. Take us back to your family of origin and how you were brought up. What was the culture, so to speak, around emotions, around seeing you for who you were? What was that like in your family?
my parents were married for 50 some odd years until my dad passed away. They were really good friends. I guess how I was growing up was you buck up and you just carry on and you do what you need to do. So there wasn't really whining and crying and it's just be strong and get out there and pull up your bootstraps and get things done.
Not a lot of empathy there. Like, you mentioned empathy
No,
of the other guy. Like, it's just buck up, don't have feelings, just deal with it and power through.
that's right. Yes.
Hmm. So, did you feel like you had a type, like you were attracted to the same kind of guy over and over?
Yes, and I'm very much trying to change that. I've always been attracted to, and it's not physical, but the high-powered, driven, usually quite attractive, but I like their personality. So, a very charismatic personality is what I'm attracted to.
Hmm. So, not high on the emotional scale, but high on the ambition scale.
Of course, I wanted emotion, but I just always thought that men didn't give a lot of emotion, and I'm learning
Hmm.
things now.
Yeah, good. So buck up and just deal with the charisma and the drive and the attraction. And
Yes.
so there were some important things missing in all of these relationships that you now have awareness around. Do any of these men remind you of either one of your parents?
Probably my mother. My dad was very soft. He didn't say a lot. He was just a very kind gentleman. My mom was get things done, not a lot of patience, and a perfectionist, maybe.
Hmm.
Yeah,
High expectations.
100%.
Hmm.
100%. My mom and I were not close. My
Hmm.
dad and I were very, very close. But like I say, he suddenly passed away about 7 years ago. And I'm now building a relationship with my mother. And with her getting older, she softened quite a bit. But we are two different people.
Hmm. Really always interesting to look back and see the relationship that was the most challenging is usually the one we try to replicate in our partners. And recently I went on a date with a guy who said his most difficult relationship was with his brother. So we can have relationships with a family member, with somebody else who we just keep trying to kind of fix those relationships through our romantic relationships, and it doesn't work. And so it's this unconscious need to repair. That we would love to have that relationship with that mother, to have her be softer, to have her have been less hard on you, to have her have been warmer. And so you've attracted these men who don't have the warmth, who don't have the emotional intelligence and the emotional and the relational skills to really have a good relationship. Because a person who has good relational skills and self awareness doesn't break up without warning. They have conversations. I'm wondering also if you made excuses for your partner's behavior in the past.
The last relationship, I don't think I did. I don't think I did. I was very aware. Yes, probably the 7 year one, I probably did. And it was a number of reasons on the road, tired, this and that. Yes, I craved a lot more emotion and a lot more connection, but it was always the work and the business and what have you. So, yeah, I definitely see that one. But Sandy, that was a huge, huge light bulb moment to me. I have done so much reading and following the group, but I've never ever heard that you try to replicate the most difficult relationship maybe that you've had, and that unconsciously could very well be it. I mean, I've never heard that. That's a huge light bulb in my head right there.
I'm glad that was a good light bulb for you because I
Hmm.
think most of us don't realize that. But if we look at the patterns, we can see, oh, This person reminds me, it's familiar to me, and we're attracted to what's familiar, and we're trying to repair. So we really we wanted to have that amazing relationship. I mean, so many of us keep going back to a parent and hoping somehow they're going to change, and they don't change, and we get frustrated over and over again. But if I say things differently and if I act differently, maybe I'll get what I need from this parent. But they still don't see me and they still don't value me. And so we do that with partners until we realize, oh, this is what I'm doing. This is a pattern I'm repeating. And I need to heal that within myself. And once you do that, once you really heal those pieces that are missing, the emotional pieces, the fact that you didn't get the empathy and the kindness and the understanding, you start to give it to yourself. One way to do that is to do some self-soothing, to have better coping strategies when you don't have your needs met, instead of expecting somebody who can't meet your needs to meet them. So I'm wondering what your coping strategies are when your needs are not met in a relationship.
It was just buck up and carry on. I would try to communicate, but obviously it wasn't there. Uh, but just what you're saying now is just so coming so crystal clear to me now, because now with my mom getting older, and I walked away twice from it because I wasn't the favorite one. My brother clearly was. And yes, you're right. My entire life, I wanted internally to feel the same feelings as maybe my brother did. I saw it differently. My mom would say, "No, I love you both the same," but we're very different people. And she even said to me about 4 years ago, I'm just more comfortable around your brother. And that
Mm.
really, really hurt. And she's since getting older, she's losing her memory. And I made the decision that instead of walking away as I had, I was going to accept it for what it is and try to form a relationship with her for the rest of our lives, because she's getting older. She's in her 80s now. And with me doing that, I still give a lot more, but my mom has softened a lot now, is telling me now every once in a while that she loves me and we're forming a relationship. And in that, I don't feel as nervous. I don't feel I need to be perfect. I feel I can stand my ground, and I'm feeling cared and loved by her for the very first time in my life.
Wow. So that's a lot of repair.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah.
And with that being said, Sandy, I feel softer with myself. I have more
Mhm.
compassion for myself, and I'm softer with me and others in the world. Not that I wasn't caring, but I had a harder exterior because I had to buck up and survive. And now I feel I can show more and feel more.
Wow. That's beautiful. Showing more, feeling more, softening yourself will help you when you get back out there and date. And we'll address that in a minute. You will be making different choices. And the most important thing is to really feel in your body how you feel with somebody. And what you've done in the past is also attract avoidant men who avoid intimacy on a deeper level. So dating somebody who is long distance all the time and has not shared emotions is not that different from dating somebody who abruptly ends something and has had thoughts about another woman and never shared them with you and never was honest with you. And so the more you realize what you will and won't tolerate in yourself, the more you will not tolerate that in others. And I think this repair piece with your mother is going to really help you a lot, because you're also not saying, I hope my mother will change. You're saying, I'm going to show up differently and I'm going to have different expectations of my mother, and I'm going to have a different kind of relationship. And that's what happened.
Well, Sandy, I can say not that my mom was a mean person, but I was always in fear. Well, not, no, let's retract. I wasn't always in fear. I was a lot of times in fear because I didn't want to say the wrong thing. I wanted the best grades. Like there was a high level of expectation. I was the oldest child, and you parent the best you can at the time. And their family was raised in the old times, where you buck up and you carry on, you don't whine, you pick up your bootstraps and you move on. So there was no time for crying and whining. My mom's question to me was, what was your part in that? So, I learned very early to what was my part in it. So I always tend to think, what did I do wrong? And after this relationship left, for the longest time, it's why wasn't I enough and what was wrong with me? And it's only been the past couple of years that I've realized it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was him and his issues, but I need to work on myself as well.
It was him and his issues, and you made choices. So
Yeah.
it's not to blame yourself, but it's to learn.
Yes.
What did I tolerate? Why did I tolerate it? Well, it was familiar to me. This was the kind of relationship that I was used to. I was trying to replicate a relationship from my past and heal that relationship. And so I was programmed to put myself last, to always blame myself, and to buck up and keep going, be strong. And so all of those things don't allow intimacy. They don't allow you to have vulnerability. They don't allow you to speak up when your feelings are hurt because you just buck up. So how much can you possibly say? Maybe you'll get rejected if you say the wrong thing. And so I have to say the right thing. So you're just put this big spotlight on yourself all the time. You can't be yourself. And so the authentic you has been hiding. It hasn't shown itself in relationships yet. And so imagine a relationship where you show up in your full glory. You don't judge yourself for everything. You ask yourself, hey, is this working for me? Why isn't it working for me? Can I talk about it? Is this something negotiable or not? If somebody says they're changing, let me see evidence of change. We don't just accept people for what they say, but what they do. And any little thing that feels like it's not lining up, you talk about it. So that's how relationships are. If, when you've done the work and you are out there in a much more not only mature way, but it's a way that's going to be much more nourishing for you.
Well, Sandy, I certainly wasn't a doormat. I did speak up and I did question things and I did think about what I wanted and where I would go. Like I didn't blindly just let things go, but I was met with either very little conversation, which I'm just going to say, my dad was a quiet man, so I just kind of attributed that to men. Some men don't talk about feelings a lot. And that's what they would say, I'm not a feeling guy. And they didn't want to talk about a lot of feelings. So I did try to bring things up and I didn't feel like I was shut down. It's just there wasn't a lot of conversation.
Give us an example.
Well, just the relationship when he was the one previous to that, when he was on the road all the time. And I would just say, I need some help and I miss you and I'm running the house and I'm doing that. And it was always a battle of, I'm taking care of the business. And I was shut down very, very much, that he had nothing left to give. And that's the way it was. And we were building a company and that went on for a number of years. And I just felt, I didn't have the partner that I wanted. I mean, when we first met, and I just thought, well, it had to do with the business and he was under a lot of pressure. And I think he was, but there wasn't a whole lot left to give to me.
So that's not partnership.
No, it certainly isn't. But I figured when you're on the road 7 days a week, that was what came with it. So you're absolutely right. And I wouldn't want that relationship ever again.
Right. So you diminished your needs because he said, this is just the way it is and deal with it. So again, yes. Patterns from your past of yes. Buck it up, deal with it. On the one hand, it's good that you realized it wasn't working and that you were upset. On the other hand, you quickly accepted excuses.
No, actually, I cried all the time for many years. And, when he came home and he basically got tired of it. And I thought, well, this is the life or I have to leave. And I did. I loved him very much. And I always thought, once the truck's paid off or this is done, things will change. But that wasn't the way it was.
Well, when I say accepted, I mean you stayed. You stayed for quite a bit of time
I
with that
did. Yes.
excuse. So
Yes, I did.
you were upset and you felt that you didn't really have any power to change it, it sounds like, which is probably why you cried.
Yeah.
Your needs were not met, his needs were. And then it can be very difficult to move on and think, well, can I ever be in a relationship where both of our needs are met and I won't get hurt again or fall into the same pattern? Let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Music Unlimited. You can listen to over 70 million songs and thousands of playlists and stations. Plus, you can now stream your favorite podcasts like Last First Date Radio. You can listen to any song, anytime, anywhere, on any of your devices. Get Amazon Music Unlimited for free for 30 days. Just head on over to getamazonmusic.com/last first date to learn more and claim this offer. So you say you've been doing a lot of work on yourself. Tell me some of the work that you've done.
Well, I used to work 3 jobs, so I was very, very, very busy. And I've retired from two, and I'm just working a little bit now. But for working 37 years, days, evenings, weekends, and what have you, I now have more time for myself. I have a granddaughter that I'm having great joy spending time with, connecting with friends now, just more time for me. But I'm also doing a lot of the self-care stuff, a lot more than I used to. Like the massages that I go to for my back, the facials. I do a lot of reading. I've done a lot of reading. I follow your group, just trying to slow down and take better care of me.
That's great. And that's a good place to start dating from. So let's talk about some of the biggest fears that you have going into dating and why it's been 10 years.
It's been 10 years since that last relationship. I did get out and date. I said, that's it. I gave myself a couple of years, probably 2 or 3 years. And then I said, that's it. I'm going to get out and date. And I made a point to, even though I find dating stressful, I made a point to get myself, I thought, in a good place and to go out there and get out and date. And I dated a lot, but I mean, it was a dinner here, a dinner there, a dinner here, a couple of dates here. And what I had found is the men that I met online, they were very honest with me. They weren't interested in relationships. They just wanted to go out for dinner with a different woman every week. And you know what? That was kind of nice to know that they were that honest with me. So I didn't find a lot of people that were interested in building a committed relationship. So I took myself off the dating sites. I thought, it was kind of the same people. And I just thought I need a break from this because I was feeling quite negative about it. And, organically met a few people, went on a few dates. We, for whatever reason, weren't going in the same direction. And then ever since COVID, that was a good excuse basically to hide. And now that COVID is over, I've worked on a COVID ward, so I kind of was really exposed to it all the time. So it doesn't scare me, but it was out there. Now it's time to get away from the excuses and get out there. So my biggest fear is asking all the questions, which I thought I did in the last relationship. Are you over her? Are you ready for a relationship? Where are you going? Hearing the answers that work with me and then having the same thing again, really invest myself in somebody and have my heart broken. And I get it. You have to risk. I get it. There's no guarantees, but I don't want to go through that again. It's a lot easier to stay alone, but it's not where I want to be.
Yeah, it's safer to stay alone. It
Yes.
definitely doesn't make you vulnerable because you have your safe life, but you're
Yes.
also missing out on a healthy relationship and a true partnership, which would be amazing. You met men who were not interested in relationships. You met men who you found the whole thing stressful. So you stopped after COVID or during COVID and you haven't gotten back out. And you mentioned asking the right questions a couple times today. And I want to get a little bit more clear about those questions and how you know that these are the right questions. Give me those questions and then we can discuss a little bit about why that may not be your right litmus test for whether somebody
Okay.
is the right person.
Specifically, the last one there, he hadn't been out of a relationship for a long time, a few months. So I asked him if that was completely over and done, and had that been severed and there was no chance of them getting back together. I basically asked where they were going. Did they want to work towards building a relationship? Are they interested in just dating for fun, casual dating? What their goals were for the future, those type of things, just kind of to get a parameter of what they wanted and where they were going with their dating, what their objective was in dating. What I did was building a friendship first. So basically, we were 3 months of dating before we became romantically involved or intimate. So it was trying to kind of build, see what kind of person that was and where they're going and where their family is and what their goals were, to see if they were similar to mine.
3 months is a long time to not even kiss or anything, or just not have
Oh
sex.
no, a kiss, just not have sex.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
were romantic-ish.
You're right. Yes. Yes. I guess I feel that, to me, once you are intimate and have sex, that you're in a committed relationship and you're going forward together. That's how I view it. Yes.
Okay, so you do take your time with intimacy.
Hmm.
Asking somebody when was their last relationship, and then the second one, is it done? It's no chance of getting back together. And then you want to know if they're dating seriously or casually, what their goals in dating are. Now, these are all good things to know, but the way a person sees themselves can be very different from the way you might experience them. Somebody might say, yeah, it's totally done. And they're still in touch with that person. Or they can say, my ex was a terrible person, but they're not taking accountability for what they did in the relationship. So do you ever ask them questions like, if your ex was here with us, what would she say was the reason that the relationship ended?
No, because I guess I don't want to talk too much about the ex, really. Like, I guess I'm at the point where I'm thinking, if they've told me they're done and there's no contact and they're not with them anymore and they're going forward, I'm assuming I am too. So I'm not talking about exes in the past.
It's not important to talk a lot about that relationship because it's not relevant. What is relevant is, why did the relationship end, and do you agree with your ex? So if she said the relationship ended because you were unkind, and maybe he was aware of that or he's not, and would you agree with her? He could say, no, I'm a really kind person. I think I'm great. You're going to start to hear different types of answers than, is the relationship over? When was the last relationship? If a guy asked, when was your last real relationship? And you said 10 years, he might think, oh, she's not a good person to date. She's a liability. They can make up whatever they want to make up. So when it ended is not as important as, what have you learned? I
Okay.
always want to know, who are you now? What
Okay.
are the big takeaways from the last relationships? Have you made any changes? Because you want to know these things that you didn't know before, which are these people emotionally available? Are they good communicators? Do they have self-awareness? These are the things you're learning about yourself. And so the more you will not tolerate people who are going to distance themselves and abruptly end things and be avoidant. You've got to see if they have emotional and relational awareness. And the way
Okay.
to do that is to ask those kinds of questions. Part of your homework is to ask the right kinds of questions when you get back out there to date again. The other thing is, you don't give up your power to the other person. You stay in control of your own power. And so it becomes an interdependent relationship, and you're looking for signs that a person might be controlling or might be withholding or might be emotionally shut down. If a person answers your questions with 2 words, that's not an excuse. It's not, this is how men are.
Right.
Because you're not looking for men who are that way. Some men are that way, but that's not the man for you. The next part is to really get clear of, who is that man for you? What kinds of signs are you going to look for? Do you have your must-haves and your deal breakers?
Sandy, could I just say something here? I have the mindset that men do not express. Now, maybe they don't express emotion like women, but that's what I'm used to. Men that don't sit down and do the big emotional talk. So there are men that do that.
Yes, there are men
Yeah,
that
see
do
that
that.
that I thought that was a real rarity. I that's I just thought that wasn't a male thing.
What happens in my experience is that as men age and they soften, just like your mother, they are no longer on this fast track to be successful at business and do everything to sacrifice their whole life to be successful. A man who's on that track, who may not be so concerned about relationships and may not be so emotionally aware.
Mhm.
But as men age and they slow down and they're no longer trying to compete as much and they want to be on equal partnership ground with a woman, those are the men you're looking for. I'm not saying every man is like this. I'm saying if you're looking for that, he exists. Just as you are maturing into a different version of yourself because you're realizing the parts of you that were not realized earlier, you will then begin to attract in a man who is more emotionally available. The right man who's done some therapy. You want to look for, that's like a magic word. You know, in therapy, I learned that, oh, therapy, sexy. Listen for those kinds of things. So the first part is to ask the right questions, to see if somebody learned and took responsibility for what happened in the past. Because if they don't and all they do is blame, you're out. It's not the right man for you, which is why we need to define who is the right man for you. So let's do that part.
Okay, so huge is I want somebody who has a kind heart, somebody that has empathy, a generous soul, financially responsible, a family person, obviously. And what I've wanted all my life is a good communicator.
Those are really key because this is really what's been missing. And
Yes.
so let's go to the deal breakers.
Somebody that has drug or alcohol abuse, somebody that is not financially responsible, somebody that doesn't have empathy, somebody that can't communicate, somebody that is unkind. Those would be the deal breakers for me.
Pay less attention to words, more important, pay attention to actions.
That's right.
This is the homework. Ask the right kinds of questions, see if they take responsibility for their share in why relationships ended and what they've done differently. Look for men with your must-haves and no deal breakers. If somebody has most of these must-haves, and you can't tell everything upon meeting somebody, if they seem kind, but maybe they weren't so kind when you were out walking and they ignored somebody who needed help.
Yeah.
Little things make up big things. How are they communicating? People all communicate differently. You might want somebody who communicates between dates, and he's not the type of man who does. Now, that doesn't make him a bad communicator, but that would make him somebody who may not be compatible with you unless you bring it up and say, you know, it'd be really important to me if you could call every night before going to bed. Would that work for you? And see what he says. If he says, no, I'm not doing that, that's going to be really inconvenient for me. Or he says yes and doesn't do it. So you're looking for the inconsistencies. If somebody shows you with their behavior that they are dismissing you, that your needs are not important to him, that you don't feel heard or seen, you need to speak up right away.
The big thing I think that rattled me, Sandy, the really big thing is I'm a fairly perceptive, intuitive person. And I do watch actions. I accepted things because I thought that was part of being a man. So what rocked my foundation is that I didn't trust myself anymore. I thought with my intuition, why did I not see this? And what I've come around to, and it's certainly not blaming. It's taken 8 years of this, is I think that he was, for lack of better words, maybe a highly manipulative person, charismatic person, and that where I would do things and where he would do things are different. So what I'm saying is if somebody has their agenda, you may not see it, even though you're looking. Does that make sense?
Yes and no, because I
Okay.
think the more you date, the more tuned in you're going to become for what is real. I think part of this is also your belief system. Your
Okay.
belief around men, your belief around partnership, it can be tweaked. And so if your beliefs around men are very incapable of vulnerable conversations. Men are not capable of giving me what I need, so I need to lower my standards.
Right.
So don't lower your standards. Reframe your beliefs around men. Reframe your beliefs around what's possible in a relationship.
The hot and the cold, how somebody goes from we're going on a trip, we've been together 8 months, we're packing our bags, and all of a sudden, oh, I need to talk. This isn't working for me. And then stone cold, no emotion, no nothing. Is that with what you're saying? Maybe somebody that hasn't worked through their stuff. I'm not blaming him, or lack of communication, because it went from fun, 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 fun. Everything was great to we need to talk, and it's done.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that coming. I didn't see it coming.
I'm guessing that his communication style in general was to avoid any kind of confrontation. If you're avoiding any type of deep conversation, of speaking up when your feelings are hurt, of talking about things, of trying to negotiate differences, you either are in or you're out. That's not fair. You're looking for somebody who all along is able to have those conversations. That will not happen. I could pretty much guarantee that that hot and cold will not happen with somebody who has been open with you and who has said, that was hurtful. Can we talk about it? But you have to bring that too. And so with you
100%.
improving your communication, you're going to attract men eventually who are good communicators, who will say, I really appreciate that you brought that up. They're not going to shut down, get defensive, tell you that you're the problem, and walk away without a conversation. That's just terrible communication, and it's cruel.
You know it is, and that's the one thing that he did say to me. I didn't see any problems. I didn't see any issues. We didn't even bicker or fight. He just said to me one time in a very quiet moment, he said, I am so scared that you are going to leave me. And I said, well, no, I'm happy. Like, I'm not going to leave you. And he goes, that's my biggest fear, is that you're going to leave me. But he left me. So
So that
some,
makes sense because he was left several times. In
yeah.
order not to be left, he left you.
Yeah. And you're right. I'm taking my power back, because all this time, that's what I've been after my grief and everything, is like, he's not thinking about me. He's with somebody else. He's having a great life and whatever. So it's time for me. But I had to do my healing first, because it's not fair to let somebody in when you're not healed yet. And I think I'm ready now. With the homework you gave me and whatever, you've given me some light bulb moments about how things resonate from my past and communication. I just didn't know what was going on, because I thought I was doing things the right way.
Well, you were doing things in the way that you knew. And that's what we do until somebody helps us see a different way. When you take back your power, when you communicate more clearly, when you ask the right types of questions, and you don't tolerate people giving you the wrong kinds of answers and excusing them and just saying, well, that's what men do, knowing that men don't do that, you're
Yes.
going to change how you date, and you're going to take your power back in dating, because you're going to be checking in with yourself, not saying, well, I don't deserve anything better than this, so I'm just going to put up with this, or I need to set the bar low because men aren't capable of being what I need. And that's not true either. Every relationship takes work, and it takes time to understand each other and to work through the scary stuff. But with the right partner, you work through stuff. You don't leave the minute something gets hard. That's an unhealthy person who's probably repeating the same patterns, by the way, over and over, because he didn't get the proper kind of help. And that's irrelevant to you, but it might make you feel better that he is never going to have the kind of relationship that you really need. You, on the other hand, have the ability to change how you date and to go back out there, and not in fear, but with all these tools so that you can check yourself. See, is this working for me? So you don't jump in and get so involved that then you get blindsided.
Sandy, you are amazing. I took away a lot today. I was writing notes about questions and things that you said, but the two main things that I got out of this today is, the big one is that I was probably trying to subconsciously replicate the relationship with my mom, because I so much wanted to be loved by her. And yes, I did attract people that I look back to now that are very much like my mother. Yes, I didn't even know that until today. And the number two, the huge thing I got, and I have to change my mindset, is that men can have emotional conversations, and that it's not, I still have that in my brain. It's ingrained, but I'm going to have to see that and look for that. So, two key things, and I'm feeling very, very positive about those two things, that I can look at things differently.
I'm so happy that you took away big things, because these are big, big realizations. And when your mindset shifts, and this is what I write about in Choice Points in Dating, you date differently. you are going to show up differently. And when you show up differently, you're not going to keep dating the same man with a different face. And so I have faith that you're going to get out there, you're going to have good experiences, and you'll walk away early on from anybody who isn't going to meet your needs and who isn't going to be kind and have empathy and a beautiful heart, because that's what you deserve.
Thank you. Oh, Sandy, this has been so helpful. Despite all my reading and following the group, I never had those two key points. And I think those are the key things for me. And I'm so thankful and so grateful.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for being willing to open your heart and share this with everyone, because so many are going to see themselves in your story, and you will have helped so many others. So I appreciate you being brave and doing this with me. And thanks everybody for listening. You heard about our group. Please join Your Last First Date. And if you love our show, please give us a high rating on Apple Podcasts. And as always, here's to your last first date. If you are ready to get unstuck, gain new tools, become more empowered, and finally find your last first date, I'd love to talk to you. Fill out an application to be considered for a complimentary half-hour love breakthrough session at lastfirstdate.com/application.